We are live for the Friday edition of the Mike and Mario Show. And as always, excited to connect. It's been too long, but nevertheless, we're here. Mr. Manico, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I miss talking to you, Mike, and that's why I contacted you the other day, and it's glad to be back talking to you about things, especially
Yeah.
in the aftermath of November 5th.
Yeah, 100%, man. And yeah, so a lot of people was like, Mike, what happened? You and Mario, you guys fall out. You guys, I'm like, no, everything is good. It's just like, schedule wise, just everything is a lot different. But we're back now talking, and I'm looking forward to connecting, man. And of course, there's lots of things to touch on. That's why I want to make sure to include the communities so that they can share their 2 cents. Because I'm assuming at this point, everybody has something that they're keeping their eye on, whether it be geopolitics, politics, financial, gold, silver, you name it. And so I want this to be an opportunity for people to have their voices heard. And so feel free to add it, thoughts, ideas, suggestions in the chat. And we got 4 or 5 subjects that we want to touch on and share our 2 cents on it. And hopefully it adds value to you guys. So I see a lot of people checking in. I see some South Florida checking in and UK is checking in. So a lot of people checking in from everywhere, man. So it's good to see you guys. And so I guess if we want to just, scan through this week, I guess, on my side here, a lot of the focus was on the presidential side. What's going to happen? Like, will this be the great steal 2.0 and all these narratives that came out? And I'm like, well, I don't know. But just from the things I was seeing, and then you factor in the immigration issue we have here that's still prevalent, I'm like, something's going to give. And the fact that come Tuesday, it was just an overwhelming, like just Trump sweeping the house. I'm like, huh? I'm like, something doesn't feel right. And I did a video saying that, like, could this been a deliberate act to where the two forces that appear to be, battling, Republicans, Democrats, are they trying to further distract and divert us by making us think that there's more than there really is? And they actually want Trump to be put in again because it makes it easier for him to take the fall, like when they bring this thing down. And so, yeah, I got a lot more, but I can rant forever. But, what were your thoughts from where you're sitting at?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really follow too much the mainstream media, but on Twitter or X and other YouTube platforms, you could see that the mainstream media was trying to play up Kamala quite a bit, that she was going to win. So even I had a bit of doubt. So, and there's talk prior to the election that whoever won, there would be trouble after it. But it seems to have been quite, I was quite surprised that Trump did so well. Not that he did so well, but that there was no disputes. And if you look at Biden, he got 81 million votes, and Kamala only has got like 67. I've seen a comparison on Zero Hedge of the bar charts, and people are asking where are all those millions of votes gone. But the other thing I've been thinking, Mike, and it's a bit conspiratorial, is that we've got just over 70 days to inauguration, and a lot could happen in terms of false flag event.
Right.
A bit like what happened in 2020. Both parties went right along, and so did Donald Trump.
Yeah. And so that's another concern, is that, the initial election results were too easy, in my opinion, because even here in Detroit, I think Veritas and some of the people that works with that group that does a good deep dive investigative work, they were showing videos of people, taking, ballot boxes of stuff into buildings 11, 12 o'clock at night here in Detroit. And I'm like, okay, so what was those ballots for then? If, like, I don't know the results if she won Michigan or not, I don't know, but I just know that before I went to bed, but when I woke up, it's like Trump, clear. I'm like, huh? I thought it was supposed to take a day or 2 or 3 the way they were trying to paint it. So I'm like, what was the effort that they supposedly put forth if there was no contest in the first place? And so that led me to wonder, like, okay, did they willingly decide to just turn it over and then put all the pressure on him? And so now, between now and January 20th, there's, what we got, the Federal Reserve concerns. Jerome Powell just basically said that he's not going nowhere. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Then you have this current administration, And it's good to say that they would want to leave him a house that's in disarray and chaos outside of what we already experienced for the last 4 years here. And so I can imagine they're going to ramp things up even more. Like we've had all types of, Ukraine package aid every month, every week, it seems, of just countless, Israel's getting funds, Syria's getting funds. So I'm like, they're gonna literally crank up the printing press and probably issue more and more to really give him a house of confusion. And so the question is, what will he do with it? And then that's where, we can, I got a lot of thoughts on, what is really happening, but I'll save some of that. But
Yeah.
and I do acknowledge John Lord. I see that you acknowledge him as well for blessing the channel. So definitely bless you, Mr. Lord, for being a blessing to Mr. Manico. But let me just start off before we move forward. I want to grab something. I want to play the Jerome Powell little soundbite. I grabbed that one, and then we can from there add our 2 cents on it, as well as take some thoughts from the viewers. Let me get out of here real quick. I gotta grab the video, and we'll put it on the screen here if I can, and just listen to it.
Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
Do you believe the president has the power to fire or demote you, and has the Fed determined the legality of a president demoting at will any of the other governors with leadership positions?
Not permitted under the law.
Not what?
Not permitted under the law.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll stop with that one. Let me get you back on the screen here. Give me 1 second here. Where'd it go?
He should know about that. He's a lawyer.
Yeah, so here we go. Like, that was a straightforward question. Will you be leaving? No. And so usually in an environment, I would assume where, you're trying to be somewhat polite and political and just keep it neutral, you say, well, I'll sit down and consult with my team, advisors, whatever. But he's like, no. So when I heard that, I thought it was fake. I thought it was some deep fake type stuff. And I had to go watch it from several sources. But I'm thinking like, okay, so is this a setup for some type of showdown where it's going to come down to Congress literally having to step in? So now that we have the House and the Senate, and once again, I don't have much hope in that. But do you think that there'll be some type of talks now on needing to address the legality of having a centrally controlled private bank over our country amongst all the debt issues, or what are you thinking?
I do, and I saw that Alex Jones, who's becoming a lot more important and popular, mentioned that. I saw he talked about this clip that you just showed.
Yeah,
and he did say the 12. Well, he said the Federal Reserve is private, but not completely. It's kind of a hybrid. The 12 regional banks are private, and the Federal Reserve Board in Washington D.C. is a federal agency. But yeah, it's the big. I would say the New York Fed is the most powerful one. They've got the most assets, and they're always on the FOMC. Other regional banks, the president only sits there for a year, and it rotates. But I was talking about this with Clive this morning, and he said, Trump, he loves cheap debt. He's got, I think, a building in New York that he's got a lot of trouble with because the rates have gone up, and the occupancy is low, and I think they're only getting 60% of the income necessary to pay the debt payments. So, and you look at who he's got around him, Trump. And I'm not saying Trump isn't better than what we have. I like the fact that he talks about climate change, that it's basically a scam, and he wants to get out of that. Let's hope he does. But the co-chair of his transition team is a guy called Howard Lutnick, who's the guy who, he's the big guy or CEO or president, I don't know what he is now, of Cantor Fitzgerald or BGC. They're the biggest U.S. Treasury broker on the planet. And I saw that an article that a guy called Stephen Bezant, I think, he used to work for George Soros. He's a multi-billionaire hedge fund manager, that he's going to be Secretary of the Treasury. And yes, they've mentioned Ron Paul now, that he's going to help out. But I think when push comes to shove, unfortunately, I'm not sure that Trump wants to fire, let's say, Powell because he doesn't like the Fed. I think it's because he wants to be in control more of setting policy, and he would like a lot lower rates, which would be really inflationary, even though Trump says he's going to lower inflation and get everything under control. So, it would be great, if he came out and said, we're going to abolish the Fed, we're going to abolish legal tender laws, we're going to go back to constitutional money, and monetary policy is going to be set by the market. But yeah, until I see it, I'm not going to hold my breath, Mike.
Right. One thing I continue to remind people of this visual aid that I just made, you haven't seen this yet, but one thing I can guarantee is that regardless of who would have won, I had a Kamala one as well. No matter who won, we will never ever see any more relative purchasing power in our national currency again because of the way the system is designed. So no matter what he says or what he suggests, whatever, he will not be putting any more actual purchasing value in your pockets again. So therefore, whatever comes next is no doubt in my mind is going to be more digital based because that's the way the system is trending. And it doesn't surprise me one bit that, towards the latter part of his campaign, he got, Bitcoin enthused and want to just talk about Bitcoin. And then I actually watched the Bitcoin conference where he talked about, he was in front of all those Bitcoiners saying that, and we're going to, use stable coins. And it got dead quiet. It's like the U.S. is going to do something with stable coins. It got silent. Like it was cheering before, and it was just dead. I'm like, whoa. And then, of course, since then, no doubt stable coins or just rebranded digital representations of the current system in a more centrally controlled fashion is what will end up coming. But I do believe it's in the works. And once again, we'll see if he mentions Joe Biden's executive order, was it 14067, where he talked about the PR, the public relations, and the building out. Give me 1 second here. I was just ranting on that a moment ago. But whether or not he'll abolish that one, because he's talking about undoing a lot of the previous policies, but will he actually abolish that particular executive order, which it wouldn't kill the Bitcoin or central bank digital currency narrative, but it would definitely put things on a different framework. I'm trying to find that. So just for people, because you never know who might be watching, maybe new, but here's the CBDC tracker that I reference often. And if you look on here, it just gives you all the nations that have something going. And when you zoom into the US and you click on the US, it gives you more details about our current situation here. And of course, the UK is on here as well. So I'm sure, Mario, you follow that and pay attention to that. But it just references Executive Order 14067 signed by Joe Biden, that it says it gives the highest sense of urgency on research and development efforts into the potential design and deployment options of a United States CBDC. So even though he ran on, there will be no CBDCs under my watch, I'm like, okay. Just like the previous event that came out of the blue from the health side, your advisors, gave you all these recommendations on deploying this medical miracle, which was ready in 30 days. What's the likelihood that there's some banking event, a credit event, sovereign debt event, and then all of a sudden his advisors say, we have something that we've been working on is ready to be rolled out. We can put cash in people's pockets instantaneously, so
yeah,
that's my little rant.
I agree with you, and that could happen from now until the inauguration, like a huge financial crisis worldwide where the dollar collapses versus gold and silver, and the Treasury can't finance its debt anymore, and people are not getting their Social Security, or if they're getting it, it's not buying much. And I don't know. I wouldn't put it past Trump enacting a CBDC, and it would be like a carrot, for people that are desperate.
Yeah.
So, but one thing that is encouraging, even though it's still very grassroots, is that a lot of states are pushing for gold and silver, like to cut all the sales taxes,
Yeah.
also to make gold and silver legal tender. And I think that's a good grassroots movement. It has to come from the local side, because CBDC would be really no good for freedom. And we saw what happened 2020, 21. There wasn't much freedom then, and Trump was president. And I'm not saying he's worse than Biden or Kamala or whoever is behind him, but uh, yeah, I'm very skeptical. You've probably heard of Whitney Webb. She's
Yeah.
very skeptical as well. So I think we need to keep our guards up, and keep what do you say again? What's your saying? Keep your weight up.
Get your weight up. Get your weight up. Yeah.
Get your weight up. Keep getting your weight up, and don't trust anyone in government, including the new administration. That's
Right.
it's supposed to be coming in January 20th, but a lot could happen till then.
Yeah.
I
And
think
speaking of which,
what
go
our friend, what's his name? I forgot now. The postman from Texas.
low blood pressure.
Yeah, he said that Biden was going to resign and Kamala was going to take over. I mean, that could happen. And I saw that Biden looked really happy when he made a speech the other day congratulating Trump.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he looked really well as well. It's weird, almost like he was. Some people said he was unburdened now.
Really? So like, yeah, so ultimately his goal in being in politics for the last 50 years was to become president. He went from, a governor, a senate for 30, 40 years, went to vice president, now president. Like, he can retire now. And, once again, I can, Mario, you know me, I got my tinfoil hat here. When I put this on, I can say some crazy things, but I'm not going to scare the audience. But
Yeah.
I got a lot of thoughts about that. But I want to keep it to something that we all can, believe. But regardless of the point, I want to real quick just piggyback on the whole sound money aspect. So I think I saw that you interviewed JP Cortez. And so I've had her on the show as well a couple of times. And so for those who might be new, you never know, but this is from the Sound Money Defense, which is the index that they put together, states that are more, metals friendly. And so you can see a diverse mixture here, but it's more of the conservative states that value gold and silver as money. And so it's the lighter states here where you can find the most friendly policy with some stuff scattered throughout here. But you got the Utahs, the Wyomings, the South Dakotas, the Texas and stuff like that. And then there's more states catching on as well, which is good as well. But here's an issue I have, Mario. A lot of these states also have just, they've immediately, unanimously passed pro-Bitcoin stuff. And so even their senators and their governors are now talking about wanting to make the city a more, Bitcoin-friendly environment. And this is the part that really trips me up. And I'm going to share this. I didn't mention this yet, but this came out yesterday. Detroit to become the largest city in the U.S. to accept cryptocurrency payments for taxes and other fees. So this is an official Detroit government, our city government announcement here. And I'm thinking, like, other than recognizing I'm in a liberal state and our governor is pretty woke and everything else in between, but I'm like, Detroit was 12 plus years ago, went through bankruptcy. And so now they're talking about incorporating a new payment method, which is what they're trying to advertise with cryptocurrency. But I've never heard once my state talk about sound money. And they're so far left here that they wouldn't even consider enacting it to remove the, sales tax or whatever from it or whatever. So that's just one thing that concerns me, how more states are also becoming even more pro-crypto friendly in this current environment. And it's not by accident, in my opinion. So I think it has a lot to do with what's coming. But anyway, go ahead. What you thinking?
Well, I think they're doing that, Detroit, not because they believe in sound money, but they see that a lot of people have made a lot of money in cryptocurrency. So they want a piece of that. I saw on your map there that California is really dark blue. It's not
Yeah.
surprising. And did you know that Oklahoma? I was looking at a chart of all the counties,
Mhm.
how they voted for the president, and it was the
Mhm.
only state where every county was red. So Oklahoma. So that was quite interesting.
Really
But yeah,
interesting.
so yeah, yeah, that's what's yeah, the sound money part. I mean, people really. I don't know, Mike. Even the people that voted for Trump, um, I'm not even sure that they're pro sound money, because being sound money means that you want the government to do nothing for you, to have very minimal government. And
Mhm.
from what Trump has said about honoring Social Security and all that, and probably there's probably going to be a lot of spending, military spending still. That's going to keep going.
Mhm.
So, and Clive was saying that if Trump enacts all the tax cuts, that are coming off in 2025, the budget deficit is going to balloon to like 12% of GDP, which is huge. So I'm not sure,
Mhm.
about the stability of things here.
Yeah, and speaking of which, here's a little nugget that I want to put on the screen here. Let me see here. Just more of the debt issues, and so how will this be addressed? So here we have the current federal government expenditures, the interest payments, and this is Q3. And as we see here, it's already gone parabolic. Now, how does this get addressed? And so, will he require that Jerome Powell, if he remains, to literally go, cut harder and faster, so that it lessens the burden of our government interest payments? We never talk about the principal. We talk about just interest. Let's get the interest in some type of area where it's maintainable. And therefore, I even watched some commentary from a gentleman talking about, he sees the need to go negative. And we've mentioned that in years past, but it not being something that was like probable. But is that something that could be on the table where they cut to spur this illusion of this, keep this wealth effect going, because stock market's all-time high, and everything appears to be hunky-dory according to where they're labeling it. Bond market's telling something different. Of course, you know about that. And so what is the probability that they cut in a favorable way that appeases Donald Trump, as well as keeps the illusion of prosperity going amongst the populace? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think they need a huge crisis, just like 2020, to
Hmm.
give them the excuse to cut rates. Right now they're at 475, but he could cut it really quickly down to 0 or 1, and then start another massive round of QE,
Hmm.
and that would bring down bond yields. But what I think that would do, it would it would make gold and silver go to the moon, and
Mm.
yeah, it would be troublesome in terms of purchasing power. It would all look really good, and the thing is, right now though, is they cut yesterday, the Fed, and the economy is supposedly doing quite well, growing at 3%. Inflation, or CPI, is under control.
Yeah.
Unemployment is low. Can you imagine if there's a crisis, what they'll have to do? I mean, so yeah, that's why I don't want to have, even if they cut rates and start buying treasuries. Yeah,
Mm.
those prices will go up, but they'll go up a lot slower than gold and silver, I think, and hard assets, commodities as well.
Yeah.
So it could be, I don't want to say the S word, but it could be a S word show, really. And they might have to, yeah, they might have to go to something new, like CBDC.
Mm, mm. Now, what was I was looking at? Bringing up the where we at right here. So just bringing up this chart here of the current activity. Oh no, that was the wrong one. Sorry. Uh,
Yeah,
and so because we didn't talk about when this happened, but the fact they got it up to 5, 5 3 7/5 or whatever, and that initial 50 basis point cut, when that took place, I think that was somewhat predicted, but it wasn't. They knew it was going to be a cut, but it surprised a lot of people that they cut so hard, so fast. And so a lot of people are saying that was a clear sign that they're trying to cover up from something, because the narrative went from everything's fine and we're going to have a soft landing to now this drastic cut. And then now it looks like, according to the way they would like to have things play out, these little quarter cuts. But then again, what we're witnessing is that they're still there. It's all trending downward, while the CPI figures that they've been giving us is not necessarily looking favorable either. So it's like, they're kind of in a rock and a hard place as to how they continue to control the narrative if they can. So they are in need of an event. Now the question is, will it be under this Biden administration on the way out? Will they do something foolish to kick off the need to either cause the immediate cut directly, or will they just try to lag along and just get the remainder try to get as much purchasing power out of the currency for themselves, like they have been with all this, what I consider money laundering to all these governments around the world?
I think it's very probable that there could be a crisis. The word is called interregnum, which is between reigns, like between the election and Trump taking over. And back in 1932, the election was in November, as usual, FDR and Herbert Hoover. And FDR won, but the inauguration back then was in March, was I think March 3rd. First Monday or something of March, and the economy had been recovering. The country was in a Great Depression, but after the election, things picked up a little bit, and then they just went downhill. I was reading this Benjamin Roth diary, and by inauguration, loads of states had declared bank holidays. All the banks were going bust. And so when Roosevelt came in, he had to implement loads of new policies over the next few weeks, over the next few years. So it's very possible that they bring things down in the next 70 odd days, and then Trump will come in and clean up the mess. And they've done that many times before. Don't forget, 08, 09 was the same thing. Lehman collapsed in September of 08. The election was in November. And then, Bush, that was his last 4 years. And then Obama, they had to do something. So they can start with a clean slate. It almost feels like they do it. It's part of a script almost, isn't it? So
it happens repetitively over and over and over again. Like,
and also in other countries as well. You notice, governments change. Like Mexico, for example, how many times they have an election, and then when between the election and the president takes over, there's a complete, crisis, like a peso crisis. I've seen that happen many times. So.
Yeah. What I want to show is, so Donald Trump did a video announcing his, it looks like 10-point plan. So it's a 3.5-minute video of him calling off what's listed here are 10, that this Colin Ruggs put out here. Donald Trump's plan to dismantle the deep state. And so it says, number one, immediately reissue my 2020 executive restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats. And then I'll just call off some of them. We'll see how the likelihood of some of these happening. Clean out all the corporate actors and national security intelligence apparatuses. Totally reform FISA courts with corrupt judges. Expose the hoaxes and abuses of power that have been tearing our country apart. Launch a major crackdown on government leakers. Make every inspector general office independent and physically separated. Ask Congress to establish an independent auditing system to continually monitor our intelligence agencies. And okay, let me give another one here. It says to continue the effort to launch.
I can't hear you. Oh, okay.
Okay. Continue the effort launched by a Trump administration to move parts of swelling with bureaucracy, work to ban federal bureaucrats, push a constitutional amendment to oppose the term limits on members of Congress. So those are all like things that I guess would be worthwhile, but nothing here about our debt, our money, and purchasing power, and gold and silver. Nothing that really would really disrupt the current structure, the way that it has been orchestrated. Like those are all things that are notable that he probably ran on it. His constituents, his supporters say, yeah, drain the deep state. Like he didn't even use that narrative as much, or drain the swamp. But I think the staff that he puts around him will probably be like they were in the last staff, which were not people operating in our best interest. But I hope I'm wrong.
Low blood pressure is asking here. How do you? I think I'm coming through. That's all right now. How do you short bonds? Bonds are, let's say, treasuries. You can do it in the futures market. There's treasury 10-year treasury note futures that you can buy options on it, but I don't recommend it. I think, it's more for a professional. And there is an ETF called TLT, which kind of tracks the 10-year note. I'm not sure. They might have an inverse TLT, but I think it's not for. It's for the professional. I wouldn't get involved in that if you don't know. But the thing about treasuries and bonds is that when you sell treasuries and the price goes down, the yields go up, and that's the cost of borrowing goes up. And the other thing that's dangerous is that a lot of the banks, they hold treasuries and bonds because they think they're supposed to be safe. So the thing is, you mentioned that Trump list there, and he said that he was at an executive order in 2020 to get rid of rogue.
I guess so. According to him, reinstating that.
Why didn't he get rid of Fauci then? That's my question. And apparently, I saw that clip on X, and someone said that was a year old. So that's an old list. But
okay, so he's probably gotten away from that list. But even his plan since then that has all been centered on abolishing the income tax. That was something that got a lot of people excited. Like, oh, no income tax. I'm thinking like, okay, we'll see how that works out. And then with Jerome Powell coming out saying that he's not stepping down, and then whoever he points into certain positions of power, we'll see how that plays out. But if there's no income tax, then these tariffs. Once again, do you really think the world needs us as much as we think they do? I don't know, especially when the BRICS nations, if we've all been covering that, have built out some stuff to where they'll probably be self-sufficient if not they're not already, because they really produce and grow and create all the world's real tangible wealth anyway. So do they actually continue to need dollars, towards the latter part of this decade will be the question. So, and us, this entire country being a consumption-based economy, that's going to start slowing down heading to the holiday season, as we're witnessing with the layoffs and everything in between. So, I'm not quite sure how all these plans will unfold, but I want to be somewhat hopeful. And when I try to talk to certain people and share with them different narratives, just so they can be open-minded, man, I be getting a lot of hate. Like, Michael, you're so negative. Give him a chance. I'm like, this is his second term. Like, he had the first term. He could have did more. But
one thing I'm curious about, though, one person is RFK Jr. because I started listening to him a few years ago before he became, involved in the politics because of the health stuff. I think that could be a good thing for the U.S. because, America, if you look at the mortality rate, it's dropped quite a lot compared to other countries like in Western Europe. And what do you think about RFK? Is he genuine?
I think him, like every other person with that level of a platform and that level of status and everything in between, they know their limits, and they all have their talking points of which they know they can get away with those things to appease their audience. So they'll tell you what it sounds good, and true, X gives people a chance to hear different narratives and more information than we have in the past. But then again, has it been allowed so that it creates more division and distractions? That's another thing. Because even with Elon Musk, he's all of a sudden last 3 or 4 years catapulted into being some type of like libertarian. He
Mm.
posts, he reaches, he got the 90 million followers or something like that, where he reaches millions daily, posting things that are pro country, pro, constitution, pro, but he made his wealth off our government. So it's like, is
Yeah.
he biting the hands that feeds him, or is he playing his part in trying to build up this hope, to keep hope alive? Because what hope has done for a lot of people is made them complacent and complicit with what we're experiencing now, because people don't want to fight no more. Like here in America, man, we so spoiled, so privileged, that people don't realize we've been robbed right under our very seats. And because we've been told to wait for this person to get in office, and then he's gonna make it okay. I'm like, how many times can you go through this? Whether it's Obama or even I got family members, emails talking about Harris. This is man. I'm gonna stop. But
Yeah. What about J.D. Vance, for example? He was like backed by Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel, I don't really trust that guy, and he calls himself a libertarian, but his company Palantir is like their biggest customer is the CIA, so you kind of wonder.
So my thing on that is, any of these Uber billionaires, the reason they were able to get to that level is because they had to work in collaboration with the private and the public to be allowed to be able to service the world the way they do, whether it be the Microsofts, the Intels, the Nvidias, X's.com, so they became that way, and they know the other side of the story. And I believe they're all playing their part to try to control the direction that we're heading in. Like I still believe, regardless of who's in office now, who's coming in office, that not much has really changed under the surface. It's just that they've allowed more on top to keep us and give us hope that things are really changing for the better. I even hear people talking about the white hats, and like there's still some people here talking about some be patient to QAnon. Like he posted this in 2016 that it's going to happen, and I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah, that just wastes your energy and time, because that's 8 years that you've been waiting for the white hats, and instead of getting on with your life, it's a distraction.
Right. And how about this? The true white hats are the people themselves. Like, we're the ants against the grasshoppers. We outnumber the grasshoppers 100 million plus 8 billion, was 799 point some billion out of like 100 uber wealthy oligarchy business people who control stuff up top. But then again, they keep us arguing amongst ourselves.
Did you watch A Bug's Life?
I did. Yeah. I had to with my kids.
Yeah. When my daughter was younger. Yeah, this is a good story.
Oh man. Okay, so watch this. Let's transition. Let's get into some questions, man. Feel free to throw out thoughts, ideas, suggestions, things that either we haven't touched on, things that are important to you, so that we can either be brought into the light or shine some light on it. So feel free to highlight at RTD TV or at Manico64, so it'll stand out in the chat, and we'll put it on the screen and try to just share our thoughts on it. So that's just something there. But what else? Man, there's so much stuff I can talk about, but we save it for a different day.
One thing that I wanted to mention, and I forgot, but now I remembered, is the CPI. Let's say Trump said, I'm going to bring inflation down. The thing is, if you look at the CPI index itself, it's always going up, never comes down. So let's say 20 years ago it was 100, and now it's 200, for example. So 2% of 200 is a lot more than 2% of 100. And people don't get that. They just think, oh, CPI inflation is only 2%. That's fine. But over 20, 40 years, it decimates people's wealth. And unless you have assets like very wealthy people, you're going to end up poor. And I don't know if I can share this here, Mike.
Go ahead, drop it in the private chat, and I'll grab it, or let me know what it is. But
let me drop it in the private chat, and I can talk about it as well. But it would be good if you could show it, unless there are questions now. But here you go.
All right, 1 second. Let me grab it. Let me know if you see any questions as well.
Yeah, let's have a look.
All right, I'm bringing it on the screen right now. Here we got something.
Yeah, there you go. That's this is the all the wealth in the United States by person by group, you see.
Mhm.
So if you look at the little bottom 50%, they've only got, I think, now 2.5% of the wealth.
Mhm.
And in 1989, if you scroll to the left, the other side, they had
Hey,
3.5%,
yeah,
you see. Uh,
3.5. Wow.
Yeah, that's just the bottom 50, and the three top lines are just the 10%. So
Mm.
what I'm trying to say here, that's what inflation does to you, and we've been lied to really about inflation over the last 30 years, saying that we've brought it under control. It's not like the 70s, but people are suffering. So I think people should be careful when politicians come out and say, I'm going to bring down inflation, because I don't think they will. Anyway, there's a question here, I think from, where is it?
Smitty, just a
Yeah.
Smitty one.
Yeah.
All right. It says, do you think that the West will continue to prop up the USD by keeping their rates lower than the Fed? Smitty 25. Do you think they will continue to prop up the US dollar by keeping their rates lower?
Yeah.
I,
Go ahead.
I don't. No, I was gonna say I don't know about trying to prop up the U.S. dollar by keeping their rates low. Just because as of now, the USD and the Federal Reserve note, I like to make a distinction. Two different instruments. USD can be constitutionally rated gold, silver. Federal Reserve note, private entity held contract between our treasury and a whatever. But the USD is already internationally. It is the financial system. So people are still going to unfortunately run to it, especially foreigners, regardless. So it's still going to be propped up regardless of what they do with the rates and stuff in the short or long term, I think, until there's some type of, come to Jesus moment where the world realizes that they're holding on to the problem itself in paper format or digitals or whatever. So I don't know. They can do whatever. Like, I think this can continue they can try to do this, whatever. But as we're witnessing, the alternatives being set up from the BRIC side, which is going to create some competition, which will make less of an advantage to hold on to USD, which at that point, game's kind of up in a sense. But that kind of answers the question somewhat. But anyway,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
Well, a lot of people look at the dollar index, and I've always said that it's a distraction, and
Yeah.
that all these currencies, be it the euro, the pound, the yen, and the dollar, they're all going down versus gold. So
Mhm.
the short term spikes in the dollar index, I don't really care. I mean, back in 1973, when the dollar index was created, it started at 100, and we're now at 105. Whoopee,
Mhm.
gold was at $85. It's now 2,700. So don't get bogged down in fiat currencies, because they're all going down, and they
Yeah.
don't mean a thing, in my opinion. There's a question here from my side, from Ryan Morosi, says, do you think it's possible to lower income taxes, increase import tariffs, and grow the economy at a faster rate than the inflation rate? Well, you want to lower the income tax, you're going to have to cut the size of government, because then the deficit is going to go up. If you increase import tariffs, you're going to make prices go up for people in the US. So I'm not sure. It could grow the economy, but then the higher prices from tariffs will cancel that out. So I'm not sure whether it will do that. And right now, the inflation rate, it depends. If you look at CPI, they can do anything to it. So yeah, I'm not sure that plan will work. It could be, it could improve things, but yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about the level of change that would be needed is going to be painful. So if Trump, even if he came in really, really trying to do some things, abolishing this, cutting that, that equals ultimately that'll be some type of austerity type of measures. And I was looking at how Argentina's going through what they're going through, and how you're hearing more positive news out of it. But then again, that's from the news sources. But then when you hear about people within the country, they're experiencing severe pain. Like inflation's up, and like job loss is up, poverty's up. I mean, all that stuff that comes with them trying to get their books in order comes with pain. So the question is, does Trump want to take us through, prosperity before something breaks to pain, or be truthful with the people, take us through some pain and ease the pain on us to where it's like we know what's really at stake because we're seeing him doing some things on the back end with the idea that 2, 3, 4, 5 years we'll be through some things, and then your kids can have a better future. And that's where we're not hearing that type of talk. So as far as these temporary measures, scratch.
I think the tariff question as well, people can't forget that if you put tariffs on countries' exports to the U.S., they're going to do the same to the U.S. So it's going to be like a tit for tat. I think the most important thing, and we're really far away from it, is for the biggest economic powers in the world to come to the table and decide on a monetary system that keeps exchange rates stable, that a system that is based on sound money. And then if you have countries that don't cheat and have sound money, then trade will flow freely. The only reason why there's problems with trade now is because countries can print money and goose up fiscal policy. And you said that people have to go through sacrifice, but I think they're already doing that, going through sacrifice. We saw the bottom 50 and even 90%, their wealth hasn't really kept up with the top 10 or top 1%. And I think it's one of the reasons why the Democrats didn't win the election, because the financialization of the U.S. economy, and also here in the U.K., is it's a tale of two cities, so to speak. You've got the top 10% and above that living the life. Their asset prices are going through the roof. They're spending. They have their private jets, and then the bottom 50%. Especially here in Europe, they're suffering because here, for example, in the UK, the socialists in charge now, they're going to make it even worse because they want to follow this net zero thing, which is going to make energy even more expensive, and they're raising taxes too. So, it's very difficult. And I think what Trump wants to do is more of the trickle down. And we've seen this trickle down doesn't work. It just trickles up and stays up there.
Right. And that trickling that we're talking about, as you're mentioning, literally keeps the same people in play and power.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that get first dibs at the trickling.
Yeah.
They're close to the spigot.
I think the only way to have a more, and I'm not saying everyone has to be the same. I'm not a communist. Or socialist. What I'm saying is, if you have sound money, it makes it easier for the people at the bottom to get out of the bottom, because they earn in sound money, and in 5-10 years time, their savings won't be like debased, and they can invest. But going to sound money is gonna hurt the hedge funds, the private equity, the speculators, all the people that have backed Trump, with millions of dollars in his campaign. Do you really think they want to pull the plug on cheap credit? I'm not too sure.
And I always mention this, like, despite your political stance and the idea that I believe everybody wants to have hope, and I support that. But then be realistic. Realizing what's at stake here, that the entire global monetary system hinges on the United States of America and the Federal Reserve and their policy making because of our reserve status. And so literally everything that will be done moving forward is designed to make it as less obvious that they are the reasons why we're going through all this pain, and to always point blame on somebody else, whether it's Putin or whether it's the Palestinian or whatever it might be. There's always be some diversion tactics, but ultimately speaking, the government in of itself is the problem. This entire so-called democracy that they want us to believe that we're a part of is a part of the problem. Like, it has grown and become a cancer to the people, in my opinion. Yeah. And so until that is downsized and taken care of and maneuvered and lessened in our lives, nothing's really going to change, because I've witnessed the digital transformation with surveillance, the Web3, blockchain, and robotics and AI, those 5 have grown incrementally or substantially rather over the last 4 or 5, 6 years. And who's in charge of it? The same people who are trying to steer this transition that we're going through. So
you kind of talked a little bit like Reagan there. The government is the problem. And he was supposed to be free market, small government. But did you know that in the last 50 years, the president that took on more debt than any other president for national debt was Ronald Reagan? So you can't even you can talk the talk, but in the end of the day, it's the deeds that matter. So
100%.
so good old Reagan, but maybe maybe he wanted to do that, but then he got a bit of a warning there in 1981, didn't he? Just after he got elected. Do you remember that, John Hinckley Jr.?
No, I don't. I ain't gonna. I don't. I was no. I didn't. My history knowledge doesn't go back that far.
Well, he was. Well, he tried to kill him. John.
Okay, I heard about that. Yeah,
1981. John Hinckley and John Hinckley Jr. His father was a friend of George Bush Sr., who was the vice president. So there you go.
Yeah. No, the reason I meant I was still in diapers. So
1981. Yeah, I guess.
But no. What else we got? We could go forever, but the day must move forward.
Just one thing. Jimmy Hatt, I think he's from Canada. He said, "Mario, move to Canada. There's a house for sale down the road."
Real estate and real estate in Canada is, it's $1 million for like it's an entry price is $1 million.
Yeah.
No, thank you, buddy. Well, let's get ready to wind down, man. We've been about 50 minutes. Of course, I'm sure there's more we can do, but for the sake of respecting people's time, it is still midday. I guess moving forward, we just wait and see as things unfold. But I try to remind people to be proactive, learn new skills, love, live, laugh, do everything that you can do to enjoy this moment, despite all the stuff that they would have us focus on. And in between, like, just, do things to improve yourself, learn a skill, take up a trade, do something that you can offer value with to the world. So that's my little good nugget for the day. How about you?
I agree with you, and believe in yourself as well, the way you think, and then do what you said there, work on your skills. And it's what I've been trying to do since I started my channel 10 years ago. I was going to focus on sound money, small government, economics, and that's what I've done. And a lot of times I thought, will people want to listen to this? It's because it sounded really radical, but I've got people from all walks of life that like to follow me. So the other thing I would say is be skeptical. Doesn't mean to say you're negative, but don't. A lot of times, don't follow all the sheep, right? That's the thing. You got to be really careful.
Right, 100%. Well, all right, good people. As always, good to connect with you. And be blessed, be safe, have a great weekend. And, looking forward to getting back on the mic on Fridays with Mr. Manico here and having some fun and just sharing our 2 cents on things. Hopefully it's of value to you guys. So if you find it valuable, hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and then take this video and share it so people can get an alternative perspective as to what's going on. So it looks like I'm getting a call, but all right. So with that being the case, be blessed, be safe. See you guys later. Shalom.